Mr. Speaker, I was disappointed to read several stories yesterday about the Khadur report that the Foreign Affairs Committee has under consideration. Since the newspaper quoted directly from the draft report, I can come to no other conclusion except that this report was leaked by a member of either the Foreign Affairs Committee or the subcommittee to the press. Stephen Edwards of Ottawa Citizen, and I will not quote the whole thing, just one line, in a report marked confidential because it has yet to be officially released. And then onwards, Mr. Speaker, the Toronto Star, Tonda McCharles list the recommendations that the report includes.
Oh my goodness.
Mr. Chair, this is a serious breach of confidentiality of the committee. The subcommittee and the main committee has to be able to meet in confidentiality to debate what recommendations the committee wishes to make.
Absolutely.
If one member feels they have the right to break that confidentiality and leak what happens at an in-camera session or the draft report on the committee looks at, then both the credibility of the committee and the significance of the report are attacked. So they can be released to the public. The majority of committee reports are discussed and adopted at an in-camera meetings. Even when a report is adopted in public session, the report itself considered confidential until it has actually been presented in the House. In addition, where a committee report has been considered and approved during an in-camera committee meeting, Mr. Speaker, any disclosure of the contents of a report prior to the presentation, either by members or non-members, may be judged a breach of privilege.
Speaker, I feel it was lost by this report being leaked in the manner that it has. And Mr. Speaker, yesterday in this place we saw this House rise to a special occasion. And we saw the very best that this place can be with the apologies to the First Nations. But at the same time, when I came to this House knowing that the report had been leaked, it troubled me deeply as I stood here. And as I listened to the wonderful speeches, I was still troubled. Canadians want this by leaking this report. So I had very, very troubled emotions. In our committee, I was the person that moved the motion to study Khadur, and I was proud of the work that committee did. We worked hard together. And that leaked report, I would suggest to you that perhaps all members of that committee had the opportunity, because I myself was asked by various media folks if I would give them a tidbit. And I chose not to do that. I chose to stick on the principles and the rules and the order of this House. It's not appropriate, Mr. Speaker, as we have heard, for anybody to speak on an in-camera report before it is tabled in this House.
Obviously, the issue that is being raised is a very serious one. It merits a thorough investigation. It may seem obvious that the rules have not been followed. But
Mr. Speaker, I want to just rise on this. Mr. Speaker, I just make one suggestion. If the House is serious about wanting to protect the security of documents, may I suggest that they not be sent by email to 15 or 20 people? The most dangerous button that we all have in our possession is the send button. And it is, if we follow the logic of the member who raised this question and of my colleague and both my colleagues who have spoken to this, then there's some very simple ways of providing security. You number documents, you hand documents out at a meeting, you take them back after the meeting is over, you restrict access to documents, you don't let staff see documents. There's a whole variety of ways in which you say, we're going to keep these documents off the email chain. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, of course there's a privilege. I fully agree with the honourable member that the documents should not have been leaked. I deplore the leak. I think it's not a great thing for the House when it happens.
The chair of the subcommittee on human rights, and I guess the points raised by the last two speakers need to be addressed. The first one, let me address first the point raised by the member from Toronto Centre. I just point out that this document was not, as it was dealt with in our subcommittee, or at the point it left at the subcommittee, was it ever in electronic form. It was always dealt with in paper form by the members. So that could not have gotten out at that point. I hear him asking a further question about how it could then have got out, and I think the answer to this is it went on to the main committee. I noticed the reports that are cited. One of them is from Tonda McCharles in the Toronto Star, and I can say that at the time of our final meeting at which this matter was dealt with before it went on to the to the main committee, Tawnah McCharles approached me in a way which made it clear that she did not yet have a copy. She was eager to find a copy and seemed to be of the belief that there was a likelihood that it would be leaked. Similarly, I was contacted by Susan Ormiston of CBC, who asked me if it were leaked, would I be willing to comment on it? So there was an expectation of a leak, but I can say that at the point it left the subcommittee, it had not at that point been leaked. By the way, I don't fault either of these two journalists for looking for leaked documents. That's their job, and it's never a good idea to criticize people who buy ink by the hundredweight. But I do want to say that it was at the point that it had left the subcommittee. That doesn't mean a subcommittee member may not have leaked it. Also could have been, however, a member of the main committee. And I raised that in order to respond to the Bloc Québécois Whip's comment about leaks having occurred from the subcommittee on 2 occasions. In fact, on this occasion, there's a very high probability that the leak occurred as a result of something that occurred at the main committee. If I might suggest, Mr. Speaker, it has been done in the past that members of a committee where a leak has occurred have been asked to essentially to swear in a committee meeting that they were not the individual, swear an oath that they were not the one who had made the leak. I think that might be appropriate in this case in order to establish where the leak occurred. At the very least, I think it's important to defend the honor of the subcommittee process itself, which I note has been very consensual and free from much of the partisan wrangling that has entangled so many of our other committees, including the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, where it was the, if I may say so, the actions of the Bloc Québécois Whip himself that resulted in the vote of non-confidence, the very unjustified vote of non-confidence in the chair of that committee. And I think if he wants to lay blame for the fact that Procedure and House Affairs is not sitting, he need look no further than the mirror to find out why that's the case.
Order. I think I've heard enough on this point.